If you've been thinking you need a lot of space to grow your own food, then I've got some good news for you. I grow a huge amount of organic food in a small garden, cut down on my grocery bill, and increase my self-sufficiency. If you're new around here, then I should probably introduce myself. I'm Kiri, and I have a passion for growing food in my small but mighty garden and giving other people the tools that they need so that they can grow food successfully in the space that they have. So if that sounds good to you, come and take a tour of my small but mighty garden. One thing we're going to have to agree on right at the beginning is that small and big are both relative. My small may be someone's big, and my big may be someone's small. It's not about the size of the space you have, it's about how you learn to adapt and grow efficiently in that space. It's also about not comparing your garden to anyone else's, as your garden is unique, and what works in someone else's garden may not work in yours, and that's okay. Just because someone has more space than you, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be able to grow more food. It really doesn't matter if you live in the suburbs, a city, a condo, an apartment. You most definitely can start growing food wherever you are. The scale that you're growing on may change over time, but you can still start growing some of your own food. My mom lives in a condo in downtown Toronto, and that woman has been growing a lot of food on her balcony for years. She's grown tomatoes and peppers, potatoes, onions, strawberries, horseradish, and a lot of petunias. You might have been wanting to grow food for absolutely ages and just didn't because you didn't think you could, because you didn't have the space. Maybe it's the rising food prices, which seem to be skyrocketing lately. Or maybe you think you have a black thumb, and spoiler alert, you don't. Or maybe you're a homestead dreamer like me, thinking about the days where you're going to have so much space to grow as much food as you want, but right now, stuck in a backyard. No matter the reason, digging in, figuring out your why, and setting some garden goals, smart garden goals, can take you a huge way to having that epic harvest that's Instagram worthy and feeds your family and just leaves you feeling fulfilled. I made a free downloadable worksheet. I will link it down in the description below to help you define your why, set your smart goals, and set you up for gardening success. Growing successfully in a small garden means growing efficiently in the space that you have and building some really strong and healthy soil. It is not about being perfect. My garden is far from perfect. Damage from Japanese beetles on my beans. They attacked my corn. They attacked my grapes and my raspberries. So it's definitely not about being perfect. There is no silver bullet for gardening, whether it's in a big space or a small space. What it is about is finding out what works for you and your garden. I honestly can't say that enough. What works for one person is probably not going to work for another person because your garden is different, your soil is different, your hardiness zone is different, your climate is different, your pest pressures are different, your skill level is different. Aside from the Japanese beetle damage, and they were everywhere this year, I have weeds, I have plants that are in desperate need of pruning, I've forgotten to water, I have some pests, I don't know what it is, eating all of my tomatoes. I haven't topped up my garden beds with soil like I had planned to do. I didn't even get the third bed I was planning to put in. But I did grow a lot of food, and I learned some new things this year. I figured out things I don't want to do next year. I've made mistakes. I've learned from those. I've grown in my garden, and that is a win. And I have a long list of mistakes that I do not want to repeat next year. But I do have things that I do want to do next year, and I have another list of things I want to try next year. It's about listening to the lessons that your garden is teaching you, and when you make a mistake, that's okay. Everybody does it. You just need to learn from that mistake and then not make that mistake again next year. I honestly think some of the best gardeners and some of the lessons that I've learned the most have been from the mistakes that I made, because then you know definitely what not to do and do it differently next time and do it more successfully. No one's born a great gardener, but you can become a great gardener by just getting your hands into the soil. So over the years, I have found a variety of different ways to increase my efficiency and grow the most in the small space that I have. I've used things like succession planting, no-dig gardening, companion planting, vertical gardening, growing in containers and raised beds, focusing on varieties that are going to thrive in a small space, like container varieties and also dwarf varieties. There are so many different varieties of seeds and plants out there that you've just not been exposed to. Things you're not going to find at the grocery store, and they look way cooler and they taste way better. I've also used multi-sowing and vertical gardening. I started composting, worm farming, and saving my own seeds, and therefore also my money, as well as locally adapting the varieties that I'm growing so that they are going to grow better and more efficiently year over year. My focus is always just to become a little bit more self-sufficient every year and to make the most of every single space that I have, whether that's growing outdoors in the front garden, growing down the side of the house, growing in the backyard, or even growing indoors hydroponically. But that is something I talk about on my other channel, The Indoor Gardener. For me, it's about maximizing my skills while I'm doing this on a small scale, so that one day when I get all the land that I dream of, my true homestead, I'm going to be able to apply those skills on a larger scale and start off more successfully. But until that day comes, I will keep breaking gardening rules, increasing my knowledge, focusing on this small but mighty garden. And I hope on this channel to share everything that I've learned with you and also continue to grow alongside you so that we can both grow an epic amount of food. So if that really resonates with you, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and also give this video a like so that it can grow and share with more people, and then we can all grow more food together. So just to give you an idea of how much food I have grown this year, let me give you a list of what I've been growing. Peppers, turnips, radishes, beetroots, tomatoes, lots and lots of tomatoes, like 34 varieties, I think, this year. I've got strawberries, pine berries, raspberries, gooseberries, goji berries, black currants, blackberries. What else do I have? I have corn. That did not grow well this year, but I have still attempted it. I've grown potatoes and garlic and onions. I've grown summer squash and winter squash and melons, peas and beans and asparagus. I've got sunflowers and herbs. I've got ground cherries, but those weren't even on purpose. They came back as volunteer from last year. I've put in a small little espalier apple tree, and I've grown lots of pollinator plants. Now, I'm not saying that I get the biggest harvest of any of these things, but it is my harvest, and it is organic food that I've grown myself, and it tastes way better than the stuff you get at the grocery store. So if you've made it this far into the video, then jump into the comments and leave me an "I am growing small but mighty," or even better, go ahead and tell me about your small but mighty garden, and let's go grow some food. You're going to be in the video. Don't creep by.